Welcome to the High Achieving Female Podcast, powered by No, where we believe high achieving female leaders deserve to be known. Here, you're going to get the tips, tools, and inspiration you need to network, grow, scale, and balance your business, career, and life. It's another episode of the High Achieving Female Podcast, powered by No. I am so excited to introduce you today to Candace Nelson, founder of Sprinkles Cupcakes and Pizzana. She is such an amazing woman. Today, we're talking about the Sprinkles founder story. We're going to be sharing a little bit about how her husband is the one that put the red velvet cupcake on the menu and all the things that she's got going on now, including her book, Sweet Success. Cannot wait for you to listen to this. Dig in. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the High Achieving Female Podcast. It's Sarah Benkin-Fishy, your host here. I am so excited for you all to meet the one and only woman who is responsible for making cupcakes sexy again. Candace Nelson is here today with us. Thank you so much, Candace, for being here.
I am thrilled to be here. I love that you think my cupcakes are sexy.
Yeah, it's an amazing day for me, for little Sydney, my daughter, and our entire No community. I'm so excited to have you here today. Just to recap for those of you who are listening and maybe aren't as familiar with Candace as I am, she is the founder of Sprinkles Cupcakes. She is the founder of a brand new concept, which you'll learn a little bit more about today, Pizzana. She's a best-selling author, TV personality. Anyone ever heard of Cupcake Wars on Food TV? That was her jam. She's also doing a little thing called Sugar Rush and Best in Dough, both which are on Netflix and Hulu right now. She's an angel investor. She is an amazing, dynamic woman who actually personally answers her emails, y'all. So let's get into it, Candace.
Let's dive in. Thank you for that nice intro.
Okay, so let's go back and talk about this founder story. I want everyone to learn a little bit about the Sprinkles founder story. Most people know about the cupcakes and probably about this cupcake ATM, which I also want to get into. But talk to us a little bit about how you conceptualized this Sprinkles like madness that's taken the country by storm.
Well, I came about it sort of accidentally, actually, because out of college, I initially went into finance and I went to work for a tech company. And then life kind of threw me a 1-2 punch. The first was the dot-com bust happened. So all of these internet companies were sort of bankrupt overnight. And one of them was the company I worked for. So I was sort of on the couch without a job, without any prospects. And then a few months later, 9/11 happened. And it became this period of self-reflection where I had this epiphany that I really wanted to do something different with my life. I wanted to embrace my passion, which growing up had always been baking, and go to pastry school instead of going to business school. So I started making treats out of my little home kitchen. I started to build an audience and a reputation. And in doing so, I had landed on this idea that the lowly cupcake, I mean, keep in mind, this was like early 2000s when cupcakes were very basic. You found them in the grocery store, supermarket, bakery, and they were kind of sad. They were just a kid's treat, right? There was nothing elegant about them.
Yep.
I had this aha moment walking through the supermarket one day that these sad little cupcakes needed a makeover. And so I set about reinventing the cupcake from the inside out and making them aspirational, giftable, and branded. My husband and I opened the first ever cupcakes only bakery, Sprinkles, in Beverly Hills in 2005. It was the height of the low carb craze. It was, in the middle of a town where everybody is known for green juice, not for eating carbs. And everyone thought we were nuts. They said it'll never work. And meanwhile, we just really captured everyone's imagination and we had a line out the door from day one. It was incredible.
Okay, this is my favorite part when people say, oh, it's never going to work. Move on. Oh, yeah, right. Nice try. But you're like, oh yeah, really? Let me show you how it's
Right.
done. Okay, so I have to know, did you bake growing up? Like, where did these recipes come from? Did you design them? Did you craft them? Did you buy them? Like, how in the world did you perfect, as what my daughter would say, the perfect red velvet cake?
Oh, I love that. Tell her thank you. And red velvet is our number one selling flavor. Doesn't matter which store, which location, it is hands down the winner everywhere. I grew up baking and I actually grew up living overseas a lot of my childhood. So I spent a lot of time in Southeast Asia. And, these were analog days. It's not like I could order anything on Amazon or, click into Netflix and kind of get a taste of home. I felt very, very disconnected from my homeland. And so one of the ways that I did sort of, get over my homesickness when I was missing home was I would bake the treats that I missed from home. So I spent a lot of time in the kitchen, like recreating all these American classics like brownies and Rice Krispie treats and sheet cakes and really just having a taste of home. So it was always a passion of mine, but of course then life gets in the way, college, my career, I kind of lost touch with baking and then reclaimed it much later. But the recipes themselves were actually developed by me over, probably a couple of years. I knew that if I was going to plunk down my own life savings and reputation, put my reputation on the line to open this concept, the recipes had to be awesome. Like the product had to be exceptional. And so I really took my time. My husband and I would take these little notepads. And basically, we were like wine sommeliers. I would bring out, 20 different varieties of vanilla cupcake and we'd taste and we'd write notes. And I'd go back to the kitchen and tweak until everything was just perfect. But with respect to the red velvet cupcake, it's really funny because I never had liked red velvet. I just never
Wow.
understood it. I was like, what is this random red cake that basically
Same.
has no flavor, right? And it's
Same.
just
Yeah.
red. Like, what's so special about it? And so when I finally had my list of flavors, like my full menu for sprinkles developed, my husband looked at it and he was like, "Where's the red velvet?" And I was like, "What are you talking about? I hate red velvet." He goes, "Candace, I'm from Oklahoma. If you do not have red velvet on the menu, I'm going to get laughed out of the state." And so I was like, fine. But if we're going to have red velvet on the menu, we're going to do it my way. So I recreated it where I really amped up the cocoa. I used this beautiful Belgian cocoa. I created this like tangy cream cheese frosting. And I made a red velvet cupcake that even I would like. And thankfully I did, because as I said, it's our number one bestseller.
Yeah. Thanks, hubby, for making that happen.
He gets full credit.
That is so interesting. This story is great because who knew that you came from tech, right?
Yes.
And who knew that you grew up overseas and have been baking kind of like therapeutically, right? Like just to
Yeah.
like feel close to home. So I have
Yeah.
to ask you this question. From concept to delivery, how long did that R&D process take before you actually like set out to open the first bakery? And I'm sure you were iterating, like you've been continuously like iterating through the years, but like how long
Right.
did that concept to delivery process take?
Well, it was once I really had the idea and I was full steam ahead, I would say it probably took about 2 years. But part of that time was in looking for a location. When we were looking for a location in Los Angeles, it was actually a really, really tight real estate market. It was hard to find a spot. And we ultimately ended up having to buy somebody out, pay key money to buy a business that, we weren't going to use. It was a sandwich shop. We ended up
Wow.
removing all the equipment, renovating the space. But that was just what you had to do to even have access to paying the rent. And it was a cost that we weren't expecting and really kind of made me a little sick to my stomach. I'm like, wait, we're giving someone $100,000 just for them to leave? Like, this is crazy. But location, when it comes to retail and restaurants, it's location, location, location. And that little spot in Beverly Hills, I swear, was definitely part of the reason for our success. It was the perfect spot for the first sprinkles.
Wow. That's incredible. So one of the things I love to talk about on this podcast when I'm interviewing fellow entrepreneurs, it is about taking risks.
Mm,
Because a lot of entrepreneurship really has to do with taking risks, calculated risks, right?
absolutely.
And so many people think like, I want to open this, and they spend so much time perfecting it and potentially over analyzing, or being too scared to jump, or feeling that like they needed the safety net. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that. Wow, $100,000 out the gate, right? You were like,
Yeah.
well, we weren't
I,
preparing for.
I was like,
How
that's
did
money
you?
that we are never going to see again. But if it's
Right.
the price for entry, I guess I got to do it.
How
But
did you
there's
know? Like, how did you know? Everyone, maybe not everyone, but I'm envisioning this like, it's never going to work, Oh, and you're like, nope, I know, I believe. Like, how did you know? Or
I
was it
did.
just a calculated risk with some numbers behind it? Like, tell me a little bit about that.
So let me start by saying that yes, it is entrepreneurship should not be about taking a flying leap off a cliff. It should be about taking a calculated risk. But at some point, you do need to take action. So I had this feeling in my gut that I was onto something. And just remember, the moment before something is a breakthrough, it's a crazy idea. So if everyone's telling you you're crazy, sometimes it means you're onto something.
I love that.
Um, and it's really interesting because, I thought I had this incredibly novel idea. But in the early days, when people were kind of first coming in and experiencing Sprinkles, and I was behind the counter, there were so many people that walked in and looked around and said to me, "This was my idea." And at first, I was kind of taken aback by that because I thought that they were sort of taking something from me, like, oh, maybe my idea wasn't original. But what I realized was they were just really highlighting the fact that an idea is just an idea until you take action. And I was the
Yes.
one who had actually taken that all important action. And they were walking into something that they had thought about, but hadn't done anything about. And I think that's ultimately what drove me, was this idea that would I ever be able to live with myself if I didn't pursue this idea and I watched somebody else do it and run away with it? I ultimately realized that I couldn't handle that. And so I was open to taking the risk of pursuing my dream, ultimately failing if I had to, just to know that, I had to get this out of my system. But again, I started by working out of my home kitchen. And so I did have some early customers.
Mm.
um, you know, Friends were buying cupcakes, then friends of friends started calling me. Then one day, the producer from the Tyra Banks show called me and wanted cupcakes for Tyra's birthday. And I was like, holy moly, I am working
Wow.
out of my little West Hollywood kitchen and I'm baking cupcakes for celebrities. Like, there must be something to my idea. So it was definitely instinct, but I also tested it on a small scale first to get a little bit of validation for my idea before I went all in.
Did you know that it was going to be as wildly successful as it is? How many stores do you have right now?
So if you include our cupcake ATMs, it's like over 40. I think it's like 26 bakeries, and then the rest are cupcake ATMs. But no, to answer your question, of course, I had a dream that I would build a national business, but I kind of also thought I would have all the time in the world to do that because everyone was so convinced it was a terrible idea. Once we opened and it became just, it was lightning in a bottle, right? Not only do we have all these people wanting my cupcakes, but then I couldn't even keep up with demand. So we had this issue for months on end where we didn't have the supply to, for all of these hungry customers. So there was
Wow.
always a line out the door, and people would drive by and see the line. They'd be like, "What's that?" And it was just this self-fulfilling cycle where they'd park and they'd wait in line. Sometimes they didn't even know what they were waiting in line for. Then the media shows up. The media is like, "What's going on here?" And the media shows up. And it just became this phenomenon in LA. All these celebrities started standing in line. Everyone always told me celebrities don't stand in line. Well, I'll tell you what, they did for Sprinkles Cupcakes. They
Ah,
started sending these cupcakes around. Well, what happens when you're visibly very successful is that people see that and they want to do it too. So within weeks, probably the first couple months actually. So I started reading about new cupcake places popping up around the country. We had
Mm.
people waiting in line with huge cameras taking pictures of every last detail of our business to recreate it somewhere else. And it was so I was completely taken off guard by it because within 2 months, I went from people telling me it's a terrible idea to people saying, that's a great idea. I'm going to do it too. Copy and paste. So all of a sudden, that lit a fire on me under me. I was like, oh my gosh, if I don't expand this more quickly, other people are going to take this market from me. So I went from, being happy for 2 seconds that I had a line out the door to being totally paranoid that I wasn't going to be able to capitalize on what I'd created.
Wow. 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 I love this story. I love your story so, so much because a couple of months ago, we were talking about what it was like opening those first few locations. And you told me that you would identify the locations and then you would go, like you, Candace herself and her family
Oh,
would
yeah.
go and open these locations because it was just so, so important to you to make sure that they were, building the vision and facilitating and actually like you would teach these people how to bake, right?
Oh, yeah. My husband and I, boots on the ground every time we opened a new location in a new city. We would go for weeks, if not months. In Dallas, we rented an apartment for months. In Chicago, I tell my kids they were like the Eloise of Chicago because all like the bellmen at the hotel that we were staying at knew them, and it was pretty amazing. We were just all on the road all the time, hiring the whole team, training the whole team. I teach everyone how to frost, how to bake, quality control, opening the store. It was very intense, but it was really important because, you know, it was all about the details. I was selling one thing. And if that cupcake wasn't memorable, nobody was going to come back. And by the way, I wasn't selling a cheap cupcake. It was $3. And
Right.
that was part of the education I had to do is people had been used to spending 50 cents or 75 cents at the grocery store. And here I was putting my stake in the ground and saying, no, no, this cupcake is so good that it's worth a multiple of what you've been used to paying. So I had to make sure that every detail was perfect. And also we had a really special company culture at Sprinkles. To this day, we still have people that work for us at our new venture, Pizzana, who were with us from the very early days of Sprinkles. And so many employees have said like Sprinkles was the best job they've ever had. Like it was just a really magical, special company culture. And so to be able to recreate that across the country, that really has to come from the top. And so Charles and I were 100% boots on the ground, kiddos in tow.
I love that. That's the part that I love the most. And I think that's what makes Sprinkles so special, even to this day, because you really took heavy consideration into actually making sure that it was felt from store to store, region to region. And it wasn't like, here's purchase from our warehouse, the
Right.
supplies, and
Right.
here's the kits on how to do it. And here's the build out and just have fun doing it and send me the check at the end of the day. Right. Which is nice sometimes. That feels great
Yeah.
sometimes. But when you want it done, you have to do it right. And I'm a firm believer in that. And when this is your baby and your vision, it's so, so incredible to be sure that it's happening in which you sort of envisioned it. So that's so, so exciting. Tell me one thing that you wish you would have done in those early days that you did not do, or something you wish you would have known.
I think when I actually woke up for the first time after having my first son, Charlie, and realized that I didn't have anybody I could call to find out which mommy me class I should go to, or, where to find the latest bottle that I needed to buy. I had completely neglected my own personal network and professional network. I think I thought and things have changed so much now. I mean, with communities like yours, Sarah, but like there really weren't the same resources and communities and networks that women could plug into or that entrepreneurs could plug into. And so I just sort of thought that entrepreneurship was meant to be a lonely road and that I just kind of had to suck it up and figure everything out on my own. And when I actually woke up with a newborn in my arms and realized that there was nobody I could call even personally, that was eye-opening for me. And I realized that I had completely neglected my friendships, my relationships. I hadn't done a good job of trying to build, a support system of other women in business around me, even if they weren't entrepreneurs. And I made a very conscious decision not to let that happen ever again. So after the birth of my first son, I really invested in my friendships, my relationships. I'm now a member of multiple women's communities. I think community is so important, particularly as a woman, because men have these built-in networks, right?
Yeah.
They're the ones who had the clubs, the going to the games, they're, talking business deals on the golf course, they're in the boardrooms. All of these things throughout time have been set up for men to be supported and have these networks for business. And so as women, we have to catch up, right? And we have to be more intentional about building these networks for each other in order to really achieve the parity that we're looking for.
And this is when I knew we were soul sisters. Um, because, I launched my business, my very first business, 14 years ago, and there really wasn't a
Yeah.
lot, right? And
Mhm.
there you just kind of had to like fumble around, and maybe you'd get lucky and you could take a woman out to coffee and she'd let you like pick her brain, and
Yes.
then, like you were just really sort of like the blind leading the blind and hoping for the best, because even back then, 14 years ago, there was still a lot of like women on women competition too, right? Like,
Totally,
uh
totally. Yeah, the
it's so
sentiment has changed so much.
yes. Yes. And I think that that's why, running No has been a big part of that. And I tell women, whether it's our community or another community or any community, like get in and get involved and leverage your contacts, leverage your
Yeah,
resources, because we are better together. So I'm so glad you said that. Thank you.
of course. It's so important.
Let's talk a little bit about the transition from Sprinkles. What did that look like? Sprinkles to Pizzana, your new brand.
Well, I like to say a creative mind is never at rest. And that's certainly true for entrepreneurs. I think once you're bit by the entrepreneurial bug, it doesn't go away. So in 2012, let's see, that was 2005 to who's good at math? 7 years after we opened the doors to Sprinkles, we sold a majority stake in Sprinkles to private equity. And my husband and I stepped away operationally from the business. And it was funny because we were so exhausted and our kids now were older and going to school. So we could be, we weren't as portable. We couldn't be as transient as we had been. So we kind of, burrowed some roots into the ground and bought a house, and our kids started school. And we said to each other, we will never go back into the food business. Okay. Cut
Never,
to
never say never.
Cut to, we're at a party. I have a bite of this pizza and I'm like, wait a second, who made this pizza? This is exceptional. So sure enough, I go marching over to the pizza oven and there is this charming Italian man who has just immigrated from Naples, Italy. He is also a Sprinkles fan. So we're, gabbing by the wood burning oven all night long. And I just became so enchanted by his story. He had come from Italy with $200 in his pocket and like the sourdough starter that was his grandmother's, and came to the States with a dream to make pizza and open a pizza restaurant. And he literally had made it where he was at, it was a party at Chris O'Donnell's house. So he had somehow found his way into the heart of
Wow.
Hollywood and he was, cooking up these pizzas that were just incredible. And while I was talking to him, I couldn't help myself. I said, I would love to do that with you. I saw his product, I saw his story, and I was all in, and I knew that I could build a brand around it. And I knew that there was a need for like just a casual yet elegant spot to go with your family or go with your girlfriends and have the world's greatest pizza with a great glass of wine. And so sure enough, Pizzana opened in Brentwood, and we then expanded to West Hollywood, Sherman Oaks. We just opened in Silver Lake. And then this past fall, we moved into the Texas market, opening in Dallas, and there will be more of those to come.
Yay. This is amazing. So it's like fast bougie pizza.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
it is sit down at dinner,
Yeah.
it's not white tablecloth, and it's way better than like a, I won't say any names, but like a quick service pizza
Right.
place. It's literally award-winning pizza, but it's still a place that you could like bring the kids after a game. Or alternatively, we also have great cocktails. You can like go on a date night, because sometimes it's like you want to eat pizza, but you don't necessarily want to be like, I don't know, at a quick service restaurant, or,
Yeah.
you want the experience, but you also want the food that you really want to eat, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
And what I love, well, let me first say that, I'm based in Arizona. So as quickly as you can get this thing out to Phoenix, I will be so happy. Pizza is my favorite food of all times.
It's the
And then,
best.
and so we're ready for it, or at least I'm ready for it. What I will say is I just love that you met this man, fell in love with his story, fell in love with his food, and you go, listen, I need to get behind this. Like,
Yeah.
we need to make this happen. And I think that really just kind of talks about or talks to your character and like who you are as a person, which I so love that you are really working with this man to make his dreams come true. Probably bigger than he maybe ever imagined, right? Like
Yes.
he's
He
probably like, wow.
It's so funny. We were having this conversation the other day because we just opened our Silver Lake location. He goes, when I said I wanted a pizza restaurant, this is not what I had in mind. He was like, I just wanted like a little hole in the wall where I could like dish out some slices. And I was like, oh no, we don't do it that way, Danielle. He goes, no, I get it. I get it.
You're like, have you met me? I am go big or go home. Like we're doing it.
Exactly. Exactly. And sure enough, his pizza is award winning. I mean, there's a really prestigious organization in Italy that ranks the pizza around the world. And our Diavolo pizza won top pizza in the world last year. It's Michelin Bib Gourmand awarded. It's, Jonathan Gold, who's the late, LA Times food critic, compared it to some of the best in the world. So it's like, stuff
Wow.
is good. And our chef
Wow.
is very innovative, where he likes to kind of play with tradition. So he came up with this, it's kind of it's the red velvet of Pizzana. It's our cacio e pepe pizza, where he translated this really famous Roman pasta dish onto a pizza, and it's
Ooh.
so good. And actually you can get our pizzas through Goldbelly, frozen and shipped to your door if you want to try it.
Oh, okay. Can you
Little
say
plug
that
there, little
one
plug.
more time for the people in the back? You can order these on Goldbelly and actually get them shipped to your door. So you don't have to be in the LA or Texas market or wait like me that was going to be waiting forever or for a while. I can get them now.
You sure can. And we've got the world's best gluten-free pizza too, if you're gluten-free. That's quite a differentiator for us, because I
Yeah.
think it's almost impossible to make pizza gluten-free and have it, achieve anywhere near the same type of texture, crispness, chew, character of the original, and ours does. It's awesome.
I'm so glad you said that too, because I forgot to tell you that, and our listeners, that if you've never had the gluten-free Sprinkles Cupcakes,
Oh, yes,
they're phenomenal. So
they
you've
are.
really been able to develop like goodness for the gluten-free market.
Oh,
So
yeah. I
this is
want everyone to be able to indulge.
that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Um, what else are you up to? I know you just wrote a book or you published a book. Let's talk a little bit about Sweet Success and and how that came about.
Absolutely. So, I think you hit on it earlier when you were talking about my partnering with Daniele. And it's this idea that, you know, entrepreneurship for me has been such an incredibly fulfilling ride. And if I could, I would start businesses all day long. But at the end of the day, you have to be intentional with your time. We busy women know that.
Right.
And so the way that I'm able to sort of scratch that itch of starting companies, but not having time to start all the companies is by supporting other founders. And so after Sprinkles, I started mentoring a few, but I got frustrated because I couldn't do enough, right? There's only so many hours in the day, and founders need, particularly female and underrepresented founders, need so much help. And so I thought about how I could help mentor women at scale. And that led me to the book. So with Sweet Success, which is really a guide to entrepreneurship, but ultimately it's a manual for women to sort of trust and bet on themselves and dream big. So wrote that book during the pandemic when my calendar was a little bit, clearer than it normally was. And really have been so encouraged by all of the feedback I've gotten from women, like everything from, this chapter on failure helped me, go after something that I've always been scared of, to people who already have established companies who are recreating their brand mission and vision based on my chapter on branding. And it's not a memoir, but it is illustrated. All my lessons are illustrated by stories of me in my journey, bootstrapping, scaling, and ultimately selling Sprinkles. So I very much show, all the mistakes that I made, all the lessons I learned, with the hopes that like I can help people not make those same mistakes. And then in addition to that, sort of part and parcel with that, is I have been doing some angel investing in female founded startup businesses because I love communing with other entrepreneurs and founders. I love learning from them. I love cheerleading them and supporting them, not just with a check, but also with my resources and, any expertise I may have built up over the years. So that's kind of what I'm up to now, in addition to, growing Pizzana, is going around speaking on my book, and also, supporting female founders by angel investing and mentoring.
That's so great, because I think that there is a time in our lives, especially when we have kind of gone through the journey of like the hustle, the making it, the growing, the development, and then there comes a time in our lives when it's really important to give back. And I say it's our duty, really. Like,
Yeah.
it is our duty, especially as women. And I could not agree with you more than when you said, men, they've been doing it, right? Like, this is
Yeah.
they've been doing it, and it's been generationally like
Yeah.
taught to them. And for a long time, women didn't have that, and now we have that. And
Mhm.
so it's really, I believe, our duty to give back into, whether it's sharing knowledge, it's helping a fellow up and comer, someone who you were back then, right? Just to get to the next level. Not that they don't have to do the work, but that we could just maybe be as simple as a beacon of light to them
Right.
through writing your stories and your um and just kind of letting it out all on the table. I also think that's so important too, to not put a lot of fluff behind things, right?
Right.
It's not easy. We know it's not easy because we're in it, right? So it doesn't mean it's gonna be easy, and it shouldn't be easy, but we can certainly see and should see some of the treasures that are ahead of us. So
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
I'm so glad that you've sort of taken this new, I've been there, done that, still have more to come, but now you're really focusing on pouring in and teaching and helping specifically women, kind of get to the next level of their achievement, which is so incredible. Um,
It's been really fun. And to your point, it's being a founder is probably one of the hardest things you could possibly do. And the highs are really, really high, but the lows are really low. I mean, listen, I have friends who thought that they had lost all of their funding last week when
mm,
Silicon Valley Bank failed. I had friends who were hysterical, crying in the bathroom, like pleading with, like, they thought all of their dreams had dried up overnight. I mean, that's the type of heartache, though, that you face. I mean, maybe
yeah.
not that specific example all the time, but things like that happen all the time as an entrepreneur. Just when you think you've climbed that mountain, there's another obstacle that's thrown your way. And so just even having like, again, as we said, that emotional support of a great network, the advice of someone who's been there before, even as a sounding board, that really goes a long way.
Absolutely. I tell people all the time, I have never been the richest or the poorest in this entrepreneurial journey than any other time. I mean, it's like one day you think you have everything figured
Oh,
out. And then the next
totally.
minute, the phone rings or an email comes and your whole world comes crashing down. And I think a lot of it is about perspective too, right? And then
Mm.
thinking about what's more important, or what is also important outside of the business world too, and leaning on your community, leaning on your children and your family, and knowing that life is also so important beyond those, those little company doors or the company email or all of that.
Oh yeah,
So
I just did actually a reel the other day where I talked about, it's so funny. We're like so just on the same page right now. Like I have really been thinking about this, particularly in the wake of Silicon Valley Bank and everything that everyone's going through. My husband and I always talk about this because when he was in college, he was home from college for Christmas, and his family and he were all at church on Christmas Eve. And while they were at church, their house burned to the ground.
I did see
And
that. Oh my
yeah,
goodness.
yeah. And so he always says, like, don't cry over things that don't cry back. And I love that expression because it just brings, into focus so clearly what you're saying, which is that, yes, we are all, want to strive and be ambitious and pursue our passion. But at the end of the day, like for me, it's family, right? It's my two boys, it's my relationships, it's my friendships. So yes, keeping that in perspective and is so important.
Yes, I love this. There's so much that I want to get into with you. Oh, there's not enough time. And
Well,
this,
we'll have more time in Phoenix.
I know. I'm so glad you said that. Because you are coming to Summit in April, and I'm really excited to have you on stage and to dig in even more. So Candace is going to be one of our fireside chats, and I'm so excited. I do have to ask you a few additional questions though before I
Sure.
let you go. Brittany wants to know if you have a cupcake ATM in your home. Yep, you'll meet her. She's amazing. But she goes, ask her if she has a cupcake ATM in her house.
I mean, I feel kind of foolish that I didn't think of that. Like, what's wrong with me? I think I was probably worried to have access that was just too easy, right? That could be
Right.
very dangerous.
That is so funny. What is your favorite? Your favorite? I know the fan favorite is the red velvet. What's your favorite that you've ever created? Whether it's like in store now or was a specialty or a seasonal item. What is your
Oh,
favorite?
probably if you're talking about specialty cupcakes, the s'more cupcake that we developed with Blake Lively back in the day
Ooh.
is still so insane. It has this cookie crust and this chocolate ganache interior, and then this toasted marshmallow frosting on a dark chocolate cupcake. It is like a flavor and texture sort of sensation.
I love that. What is the one thing that when it was going tough, when you were struggling big time, what is the one thing that you held on to that made you never give up?
I mean, I'd have to say it was my husband. He and I were co-founders, and he and I were 100% each other's emotional support. And there'd be days where I was up and he was down, but very often it was he was up and I may be down because he's actually can sometimes be a little bit more um, optimistic, and I can sometimes be a little bit more realist,
Mhm.
just relative between the two of us. And so we were just this sort of yin and yang that helped each other out. And when either one of us was facing a hard time, we would talk to each other and talk each other through it. And that really allowed me to kind of pick myself up after failure. And when I felt like, the cupcake world was exploding without me being part of it. Like that was very, as I said, I became very paranoid. But they do say only the paranoid survive. But I then learned to really focus not on what was going on around me, although that initially took me off track, but to really focus on what I was there to do, which was, deliver on the Sprinkles brand promise. And once I kind of figured that out, it was smooth sailing.
I love everything about this episode. I will say that you may or may not, but may most likely are my number one favorite conversation in all of our podcast history. I just think
way. Thank
amazing,
you,
Candace. And so I'm going to challenge everyone who is attending our summit to listen to this episode. In fact, I'm going to put this as a prerequisite, because what we're going to do on stage at summit is like continue the conversation. So they have to listen to this episode first in order to understand everything that we're going to be talking about on stage. So
I love that plan.
I think it's going to be exciting.
You assign that homework, Sarah. You assign that homework.
I am. So for everyone who is listening, whether they're listening as soon as this thing drops or they went way far back into the archives, a future in time, tell everyone how they can find you. You mentioned Instagram. You're super active on Instagram, and I love watching your stories. So
thank you.
They
can find me on Instagram at CandaceNelson.com, also on TikTok at CandaceNelson.com. And I'm on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn as well.
And the book, Sweet Success.
Yes, the book, Sweet Success. Please buy it for all of your friends who may have a business idea on the back burner or have started a company and need a little guidance or direction. It's also a great gift for graduates, like college and even grad school graduates coming up this spring. So please support the book. I would be so grateful.
I love that, Candace. I'm so excited we were able to chat today. I cannot wait for more. And everyone, I hope you have enjoyed this episode. And Candace, we'll see you in April.
Yes, see you in April. Thanks so much, Sarah. This was really fun.
Thanks. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the High Achieving Female Podcast, powered by No, where we believe it's time for high achieving women like you to be seen, heard, and recognized. Until next time, remember, you deserve to be known.